So welcome back, children. I just, before we start, I want to thank Ms. Beverly Gilchrist for this wonderful platform that I'm able to invite people that are on the same, we on the movement together, like that, some stuff like that. Right here, I have a wonderful guest, Shanika Charles, Miss Shanika Charles. She is wonderful. She is like my older sister, my mentor. Welcome.
Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, so to start, what your name, I want your name, what you do for a living.
Oh,
stuff like
sure. So as you said so eloquently, my name is Shaniqua Charles, and there's a plethora of different things that I do. What I'm most passionate about, however, is Miss Abby's Kids, which is our organization. I'm the executive director for Miss Abby's Kids. Executive director, which is, it's a youth development nonprofit that services the Northeast Bronx and abroad, where we build healthier, more sustainable children through real world teachings. And I'm also the co-founder and president of Never Be Caged, which seeks to end mass incarceration through the investment in our youth.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to get into more of the mass incarceration.
Sure.
So the mass incarceration rates, they're at an all-time high, right?
Absolutely.
So do you think because hold on, let me, I had the idea, but it just left. So why do you think that the rates of imprisoned are really high among Black and brown people?
Amongst Black and brown people specifically?
Yeah.
Well, one, our country is hell-bent on punishment versus teachable moments, right? We're dealing within a country that has the highest rates of crime against its people, actually. And if you look at the span of over, I want to say, the last 40 years, where we had people instituting structural racism within systems, it was all kind of set up for us to be in this moment in time where so many of our brothers and sisters are locked in cages. When you take away educational opportunities, when you decrease the value in the education itself, when you poison food to weaken the body and weaken the mind, when you infiltrate communities with drugs and call it a problem and criminal and all of those things during the times where that epidemic was sweeping our communities, it was criminal. Now it's a public health issue, now that it's crossed over into white America, into suburbia. So there's a lot of different factors. That 13th Amendment has a lot to do with us being modern day slaves, looped up in mass incarceration. Why do our schools look like mini prisons? You walk down one side of the hallway, on the other side of the line, you have lockers down the hallway, you have wooden doors with glass.
I was really thinking, I was really thinking about that, in my school, the fact that we have to walk in a single file sometimes, it's so crazy how, that loophole, it's like a vicious cycle. Yeah, I was, really noticing that, but, I didn't want to, say nothing. I didn't want to see, crazy until you brought it up. So now I could talk my crap when I go to school.
You absolutely can. And ask the questions. You gotta ask the questions. Why are things like this? And draw your comparison as a young person who's vigilant and making sure that your people have freedoms, and also let your other young people know that, listen, sister, brother, you too can ask these questions because you're stronger in numbers. Yeah.
There's power in numbers. So before we get into I just wanted to ask, we're gonna start from the top. So how did you get into activism and stuff like that?
So I was 11 years old, right? I've always lived deep. We about to get deep, brother. So I was 11 years old, and there's a man named Jose that to this day still lives in my community. And I didn't know it at the time that he was planting seeds, right? I didn't know it at the time. It's only in hindsight looking back oh, you did that on purpose. He invited me to a meeting. And the meeting was about some folks that were upset around the conditions in the apartment buildings, you know, apartments falling apart, buildings are dirty, and so on and so forth. And it was just 2 blocks up in an apartment that's now an apartment that used to be a church back then. And what I saw was a bunch of people from my neighborhood that were pissed off, right? But what I also saw in that meeting was, at the end of the meeting, they all came to a consensus about how they were going to address it. So it wasn't like, you know, people just complaining about stuff. You know, you hear people all the time.
Sound
just
like solution.
Yeah, man, they were focused on solutions, and I left out of there thinking, oh snap, I wonder what else would happen if you gather people with the same issues, but you mastermind solutions for yourselves and then demand those solutions instead of just broadly asking for help. You can't just go help me. You have to say, this is what we need, and here's what I need you to do in order to make that happen. It's a huge difference. And it left an impression. So by the time I got to like high school, junior high school and high school, I was doing things like president of student body. By the time I got to high school, I was involved in many clubs, creation. Then by the time I got to college, even though, because I grew up in a home that was full of love, yes, but also had some addiction issues, also had some criminal justice issues. I had some anger in there, right? And it manifested in some weird ways, and I didn't always listen because there was no outlet for me to talk about the things that were happening in my home, right? But by the time I got to college, I mean, you know, we were creating organizations, we were, you know, stomping the yard, we were really making a difference. And then when I came home and I saw my community still in the same flux that it was 4 years prior, you know, it resonated to me that something has to be done, you know. Then some years, go ahead.
So that was kind of like your motivation.
Yeah. That was the motivation, and then the ultra determining factor was my mother getting sick. Like, wait a minute, you didn't have to get sick. You in an area that is a food desert. You were criminalized instead of treated for your addiction. You know, all of these different things. And listen, you know, my mom died in my arms on February 18th, 2012, after taking care of her in those stages of cancer that the doctor didn't find. How didn't you find this, you know? So all of those things combined, we decided to use her legacy that she left behind of love, coupled with what took her life away, to empower young people to say, this doesn't have to be your path.
So that's how Miss Abby's kids was.
Absolutely, Miss Abby was my mom.
Oh, wow.
And that's what they called us in the neighborhood. Hey now, go over there and get Miss Abby's kids and take them back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was wondering like that context. Wow. So your daughter Miracle,
Yes.
she was telling me about you riding a motorcycle.
Yes.
Can you explain that? Because it was how she was saying it was like a funny. I want to hear, you know, from you.
Well, I ride motorcycles. I was introduced to motorcycles, you know, in my early 20s. And, you know, it's a way of release. Because when you're on a motorcycle, the only thing that you can think about or concentrate on is the road, other cars.
And that power. Like the power behind it.
Yeah, you have to focus on that. So, like, you get off the bike and you feel recharged, supercharged, actually. My mother was like, you get on that bike? Shaniqua, you know, she tried to beat me. I was like, Mom, I'm 20-something. I don't want you to beat me no more. And I took her to a doctor's appointment on my motorcycle one day. And when we got back, after she yelled at me and cussed me out, when we got back, she said, now, can we go up near Valentine so I could wave to my friends? You love it, don't you, Mommy?
Wow. So about the motor, do you remember the type that you had?
At that time?
Yeah.
That was, that
Harley
was a 636.
Davidson?
No,
No,
I
stop.
haven't had a
Nah.
Harley yet. But
Oh.
I'm thinking about it. Yeah, it was a Kawasaki Ninja 636.
Oh, I ain't never heard of that.
See?
But yeah, you know. So getting back to,
Yeah.
I heard that you and Miracle went up to Albany for solitary confinement reform.
Yeah.
What was that about?
So the campaign that we went to support is called Halt Solitary. And Holt Solitary has been really trying to make sure, under the organization called CAKE, they've really been trying to make sure that solitary confinement is removed from the prisons because it is inhumane.
Yeah, it is.
It is torturous. And inside of prison, it's used as an abuse, right? And so we were talking yesterday as we were on our way. I mean, Miracle's been to Albany and DC, all of these places, tons of times because we work on criminal justice reform and youth development vehemently work on those things. As a matter of fact, she's the youth programs coordinator for Miss Abby's kids, actually.
Okay.
So she does a lot. But what we thought about yesterday is, like, we have legislators, people that make laws that sanction the use of solitary confinement. So it's in my estimation that, well, if we take that same legislator and we say, you know, in order to be on this committee, the Justice Committee, why don't you spend 6 or 12 hours in solitary confinement inside of a real prison and then give your opinion on who should go to solitary and who shouldn't go to solitary.
Yeah, because, like, you know, a lot of people, they give out, you know, like, no shade to the judges, but, you know, they giving out 25 or L, you know, and but they haven't really, like, experienced how it feels like to be in there for a day. Like, it really, like, breaks you down mentally, physically, spiritually, and it's scary.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you get Miracle involved?
I didn't get her involved, actually. Miracle, you know your little sister, okay? Miracle came out with a spirit of her own.
Yeah, it's like me, yeah.
Okay, so y'all know how y'all get down, okay? Miracle came out with a spirit of her own. She came out literally and was looking up at me like, hey, nice to see you. You know what I mean? Being 2 minutes old. And so I knew at that point, even at that point, that I was, my function in her life as an intentional parent wasn't to put anything on her to say, this is the direction you have to go, that's the direction. She's been here tons and tons of times before. She's recycled energy. I'm glad I got chosen to bring her back. You know what I'm saying? Because I got blessed in that regard. But
oh, I get it.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, but I saw your aha moment there too, right? So what she shows an interest in, I feel my duty is to create avenues where she can flow through what it is that she wants to do. You know what I'm saying? She was 5, 6 years old. We were on 42nd Street, and there's a big church that people experiencing homelessness sleep on. And we were walking by, and she looked, and she's like, Mommy, what is this? What are they doing, and why are they sleeping out here? Because she saw pillows and blankets and all kinds of stuff. And so that began the conversation of what homelessness is. And she's like, but wait a minute, isn't New York City rich? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Isn't this country rich? Yes, it is. So why are they sleeping on the street? And I asked her the question at that point, so now that we've identified the problem, what is it that you intend to do about it? She came back to me a few weeks later and she said, I figured out what I want to do. She had just done her first fashion show at Bronx Fashion Week. She said, I want to design accessories and I want to use the money from that to feed homeless people, which now we're language conscious, right? So we say people experiencing homelessness because then that takes away the label.
Yeah.
And it brings light to this could be a temporary situation, right? So I want to feed people experiencing homelessness and eventually build a village and housing and all that stuff. And so that's what she's been doing for like the past 3 or 4 years. And she's the youngest designer ever on Bronx Fashion Week, Fashion on the Hudson, Chubby Line, New York Fashion Week, you know, amongst other things. So it's just like opening lanes up for what she's interested in and curious in, but not putting anything on her.
Yeah, 'cause I remember my mom told me a story. She showed me a sonogram. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, it's
a sonogram. And I saw like I had the Power Fist stuff. And I'm like, yo. So
That's awesome.
And I was walking past the National Action Network one day, and I saw Rev Al speak. And from like that time on, it was like, and I heard what I really, you know, he was using big words.
That's right.
For a 3-year-old, but you know, I kind of understand like cannot allow this to go on.
Right.
And then I heard like, you know, black on black crime, you know, stuff like that. And this was when, let's see, this was almost after Eric Garner was choked. So that, and when I heard about that and knew like the situation in its fullest, that's when I'm like, oh, nah, this. And so I've been in a, you know, movement like 8 years, 9 years now, and like it's scary, but we got to do it, because if we don't, nobody gonna do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So getting back to Miss Abby's kids, what have you live in the Bronx, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in the Bronx, how does Miss Abby kids cater to, like, you know, the community? Like, is it to the kids or like everyone?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Miss Abby's Kids is youth focused, realizing that not only do we need to be focused on youth, right, but that we also have to be mindful in providing resources and things of that nature to the people who are raising the youth, whether it's parents, grandma, auntie, uncle, and some of the programs that we do. I mean, we've serviced, thank God, we've serviced nearly 15,000 young people in our time being around. Yeah, and it can grow to so much more. But some of the programs and activities that we have, we started last year. The Miss Abby's Girls Summer Sleepaway Camp Style Club, and we take the girls from Bronx and Harlem to 287-acre farm in Connecticut that's also attached to one of the most prestigious prep schools in the country. And for a whole week, we're in tents, in sleeping bags. We focus on agriculture and production, right? What does it mean to be a producer in the world instead of a consumer? So our girls got an opportunity. They worked half the day on the farm, and now they understand where food comes from. And they take a seed to a plug, put the plug in the ground to watch it grow, harvest the food that grows, and feed people. And it was really transformational. The other thing that the camp focuses on, the Camp Style Club focuses on, is swimming. That's a large problem in our community.
Swimming.
Yes, and a lot of our young people don't get an opportunity because swimming is not mandated in school. You don't have the swimming pools in the backyards because there aren't any backyards in our concrete jungle, you know, and 100% of our girls knew how to swim at the end. I mean, we also have Money Matters, book club, visual art, improv and theater, and leadership development, which the leadership development is ongoing. We also have a judge shadow program, and so keeping in mind that if we want to stop people from going to jail, if we prep our kids as young as possible with all the tools, then them going to jail is less likely, right? So the girls have a workshop with family court judge, and then they go to the courthouse, they go into the judge's chambers, then they sit on the bench with the judge in real time as they're presiding over real life cases. And it allows the girls to visualize themselves, girls and boys, visualize themselves, number one, as part of a community that we're shut off from unless we're being punished, right? Unless someone's shaking their finger in our face. And you get to understand the system and the law from the other side of the bench, you know? Amongst a bunch of other programs that we hold, you know, glue guns, not handguns, get focused towards the younger people and tapping into their creative side and how to release those energies that I was talking to you about earlier. You know, I was an angry kid sometimes. Yeah. You know, and just giving them different outlets to do that. You know, we go to plays, we go to anything that will increase their. You mentioned black on black crime earlier.
Yes.
And I wanted to touch on that really briefly, if that's okay with you. The phenomenon about black on black crime is a construct created by our country to help people visualize blacks as violent and dangerous. That's not a real thing. Here's why I say that. When a white man kills a white man, you don't hear anyone say white on white crime. When a Chinese man kills a Chinese man, you don't hear anyone saying Chinese on Chinese crime. The assaults that happen inside a particular community, they're usually committed by members of that same community, whatever it is.
So just usually noted as that crime. But when it's us,
But when it's
you
us,
gotta
it's
label
black on black crime.
I even never think about it
Right.
like that because it's like I'm so used to hearing
Right.
that terminology. It's
Right.
like, oh well, if I say this, I'll sound smarter. Wow. I was like, wow.
That's not a
You
thing.
like,
There's no
yeah.
such thing as black on black crime. That's a lie.
It's crime.
It's crime. It's crime. Unless you fit in to label everybody, you can't just label one.
You dope. And you talking about the plays and stuff. I need to link up with you. Go see Lion King and stuff like that. But yeah, so have you ever witnessed corruption while, like, because you said something about kids was on the bench with the judge. So like while it was on, have you ever witnessed corruption during that, like?
In which
service?
arena? I witness corruption in every arena because humans sometimes just do really human things, right? So you're willing to tap into your higher self, the spiritual being that you are, the spirit being that you are. Sometimes humans do regular human stuff. So there's corruption everywhere, in all these arenas, in the activist world, in the political world, teachers, priests, judges. It's all over. It's all over.
Why do you think that is?
Because humans are humans. Because humans are
You
humans.
can't elaborate.
Elaborate on that? Sure. Corruption happens, in my estimation, and this is just my estimation, right? This isn't science, a hard fact. But corruption, I think, is a result of some sort of lack that happens. So if you have folks who have authority or have power that maybe never had authority or had power before, sometimes
kind of abuse it.
Yes, sir.
Ooh.
Yes, sir.
Wow. See, you learn something new every day. Yes. Okay. Wow. So, if you can change, I'll ask Miracle this, but because a lot deeper. So if you could change one negative thing in America that you have witnessed, what would it be, besides Trump?
Besides, I don't even say that word. Look, that's the only cuss word in my house, the T word. I would change integration. I would change integration. I don't think that anyone should tell a group of people that they're not allowed, but I do believe that people should be allowed to live independently, especially when they flourish more independently. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we wouldn't have had things like, the bombing in Tulsa, Oklahoma, black folks doing well, black-owned businesses, churches, schools, restaurants, movie theaters. We wouldn't have had those kind of things happen if, we were allowed or continue to have our own. And you don't want us to have this of yours? Okay, no problem. Let's go have our own. Seneca Village, again, which is now the Central Park of New York City, right? If New York really wanted to apologize, why don't you give Central Park back to black folks and let it be Seneca Village again?
Yeah, because I know I mentioned this, further interviews, but I wanted to ask your opinion on what Malcolm X said, because we were learning about what he mentioned, about we should go back to Africa and separate from the white man. And I raised my hand and I said I feel like if we have done that, it wouldn't have been the crack cocaine in our communities and stuff like that. We probably had an elite group of people just like the Black Panthers. And, I just want to get your opinion on, if we had separated, would we be better off or would we be worse,
Well, we were better off when we had our own.
Yeah.
We were better off. And, the thing about it is that, when you have any group that hates another coexisting, there's always going to be tension and there's always going to be turmoil.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't
Just
make any
based
sense
on,
at all.
who you pray to or skin color, make no sense. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really valid point, Chris, so I'm glad that you brought that up. But the idea of being in an environment where I'm just Shaniqua, not Shaniqua, a black woman, where you can be just Chris, not Chris the young black man. That's exciting to me. That's exciting to me. Are you familiar with the return home that happened this year, with Ghana's push to make sure that they outreach to blacks across the world to come back home? Yeah, they granted citizenship to a lot of black Americans. That's okay, black Americans to come back home to Ghana. Nigeria is on their way to doing it as well.
Oh, wow.
Yes, sir. I think it was called the Year of the Return. It was called the Year of the Return. So that's something else that you can like.
Just thinking about that, maybe, go back to the motherland for, black people. So, wow, that's crazy. But like, I just hear like a lot of people like stereotypes, stuff like that. I'm not trying to get, too, But like I just hear a lot of stereotypes that like, African, African people dislike African Americans. Is that, I don't.
It's also a construct.
Yeah.
That was also part of the construct, to make sure that there maintained a division, because once the African man and the black American man see eye to eye, that's more power in more numbers. So how can we devise ways in America to make them feel like Africans don't like them? How can we make Africans feel like Americans don't, deserve their royal inheritance? That's all a construct, and it's really sad to see. But it's nothing that can't be overcome. It only took them a couple of decades to do it, and we can turn all of that around.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, I consider her my mentor, my sister, all of that, and I'm just proud to have her on my show. She dropped like knowledge, like deep knowledge, and I feel like if you had more people like, the world would be a better place. But I just want to thank the executive producer, co-executive producer, for setting up a platform for me. And with that, thank you and have a good night. Peace.